Hi, everybody. I just want to thank everyone for coming today. It's really awesome to see people. I know the weather's really cold. My name's Story. I'm with Pro, and we're kind of all working together on this, and it's really nice to see all the different groups come together to kind of celebrate everything as well. After more than 30 years, PEI is still fighting for local access to abortion services. On this day, exactly 3 years ago, we held a rally here at Province House, raising our voices together on behalf of island women and calling for our government to work with us and change the status quo. I'm so proud for all of us, but until we have local access to abortion service, this fight will never be over. A proposal has been brought to the table that will save our government thousands and provide island women with safe local access to abortion services. This proposal was squashed by our government, who claimed it was against policy to offer the services here. This policy, we have been told, does not exist in any written form, nor is it legal. And it's time for our government to be held accountable for toying with the safety of island women's health for the sake of an outdated political agenda. It's time for Minister Curry and our government to do what's right by saving our province and taxpayers' money and giving all women in PEI a real choice in what happens with our bodies, because it's our choice to make, not our government's.
I'd like to welcome to the podium or to the mic here to say a few words, Colleen McQuarrie, Professor of Psychology at UPEI.
Hi, everyone. It's a sunny day. The reason I have been invited to speak with you today is I've been doing research on the impact of PEI's abortion policies on women's health. We deliberately framed the research in a way to look at women's health because we knew that that was a key concern. Here's what we know. Based on the evidence of research on PEI's abortion policies, we absolutely know that the policies have been detrimental to women's health. The policies have included a range of obscuring information on how to access abortion, as well as the resources that might be necessary to attain abortion. The bottom line is that women in Prince Edward Island have experienced the access to abortion services as a severe and punishing regime. The other thing we know with absolute certainty is that abortion itself is a safe 10-minute medical procedure that could easily and readily be performed here in Prince Edward Island. And in fact, it used to be performed here in Prince Edward Island up until about 1986. This means that repatriating abortion care is not only an obvious and easy choice for our politicians to make. It is also a necessary choice in any credible public policy that holds women's health at the center. This is the other thing we know. The women in our project talked about abortion as an obvious choice for them, as a not very difficult decision. There are obviously a range and diverse number of experiences associated with abortion, but one thing we know for sure is that when you create the conditions that cause barriers, you are also harming women. The other thing we know for sure is that the shame, the stigma, the judgment that is happening in our community is detrimental to women's health. So there are three things that we can do starting right now. One, we invite the government to work with us in a collaborative process to repatriate abortion care within 100 days. Number two, we invite all islanders to work with us on collaborative processes to eliminate the stigma, eliminate the barriers, and create a caring, compassionate society where women's health care is a cornerstone for health for all islanders. Number three, we can hold a big-ass celebration on these steps in the summer when it's warm to show Canada that PEI is no longer last when it comes to women's health care.
Now I'd like to welcome Alicia Lewis up here to say a few words. She's an active member of our community, and I'd like to welcome her.
Thank you so much for coming out today. Your presence here shows your commitment to the health of islanders, which is more than our health minister can say. Despite claims of the healthcare system being adequate, through research it has been determined that this is far from the case. Healthcare on PEI is lacking, particularly with respect to reproductive rights. Over the course of my research and the research of many others, it became apparent that abortions do occur on PEI because limiting access to abortion does not prevent them from happening. Instead, it creates the conditions where unsafe abortions may be perceived as the only option. Data from Health PEI indicate that up to 2 failed attempted abortions or illegal abortions occur each year on PEI, and these are only the ones that chose to see a doctor afterwards. Stories of self-induced abortions are not just part of our past and have been in the minds or part of the plans for many islanders. For this reason and countless others, I am tired of hearing that the status quo is acceptable. I am tired of hearing about this fictitious policy that is preventing people from accessing basic rights, and I'm tired of hearing that the government is clear on their position. This policy is anything but clear. I am tired of hearing that PEI is too small as an excuse for the denial of reproductive rights. Yes, PEI is small. And yes, there are a number of other services that have to be accessed off-island. However, other services that aren't offered here don't have the equipment or the skills available on PEI with respect to abortion. This is not the case. We have the people that are willing to perform abortions. We have the law, and we have the equipment. And we also have a plan to save the government money. In addition, other services don't have a cap of 2. Only up to 2 abortions will be funded by the government, and after that, people have to pay for it themselves. Other services aren't only available at one particular hospital. The PEI health card is rendered useless at hospitals across the country if an abortion is sought, with the exception of the QE2 hospital in Halifax. Our health card becomes almost as useless as the government officials that will not act in favor of a person's right to choose. There are many issues with health care on PEI, and abortion is just the tip of the iceberg. What lies beneath that surface are inequalities, hidden agendas, and a complete disregard for reproductive justice. We ask that the government stop it with their excuses that have no bearing on this issue, and we ask that abortion be made locally available to islanders. We may be small, but our voices are certainly not, and we will no longer be silenced. We will continue to advocate until local abortion access is here on Prince Edward Island. We deserve reproductive justice, and we deserve to have it now.
Thanks, Alicia. I'd now like to call Josie Baker from ARN to come up, and multiple other groups as well, to say a few words about the timeline of the reproductive justice movement over the past few years.
Yeah, as we've talked about, it's been 3 years, and so we decided we'd put together a timeline and say, what exactly have we done in that past 3 years to try to educate our government about why this is important, why this is critical that we have access to abortion and PEI. And so I'm just going to take you through a little bit of what's happened. It doesn't include everything, but especially the stuff that deals with policymakers. So 3 years ago today, PRO broke the long-standing silence with their call for abortion rights in PEI. These brave women started this group, made media across the country. They brought this, bringing this ongoing violation of women's rights to the national consciousness. On the day of the rally, we were matched in numbers by the anti-choice group, who stood silently by, being sour and intimidating. But in the lead up to that, Minister Doug Curry said to CBC's The Current that it was an issue of cost and that access to abortion had never been an issue that had been placed in front of him as health minister. But that was a lie. The PEI Advisory Council on the Status of Women notified him of his oversight and sent him copies of all of the letters on this issue from when he was health minister before. But only 2 weeks later, he repeated that lie to the Globe and Mail. In December of that year, Minister Curry made a political point of meeting with both the pro-choice and anti-abortion groups. And he also put the information about abortion on Health PEI's website. After this, Robert Gibbs proclaimed that I'm going to stay with the status quo and said, this is a very emotional issue. He called our lack of access to abortion a good compromise. In 2012, when Candace Hagan was nominated and eventually won the Youth Leadership Award for the Atlantic Council for International Cooperation, despite anti-choice opposition, not one single policymaker in PEI sent her a letter of congratulations. But we did get a very nice letter from Senator Catherine Caldbeck. Also in April 2012, we held a speak out and we shared stories of island women's abortion stories. And this took place on the same day of the Woodworth motion and made national news. In the context of the Woodworth motion in Ottawa, our local MP, Sean Casey, eventually came to announce that he would vote with his constituents against Motion 312 following a meeting with representatives of PRO. Status of Women also communicated with Minister Curry and Valerie Docherty about that issue. And then on October 20th, PEI was the focus for the National Day of Action for Reproductive Justice, with a press conference and a march, and the full-color ad that was put into the paper by the anti-choice group was later found to be inaccurate and misleading by the Canadian regulatory body governing advertising. Now, moving into 2013, Dr. McCrory released her preliminary findings on the harms caused to women by restricted access to abortion. And in March, we released an open video letter to the PEI decision makers, which included the voices of women and men in PEI calling for in-province access to abortion. And also, unbeknownst to us at the time, it was in May 2013 that Minister Curry interfered with the work of Health PEI to stop the business case that would have quietly and effectively offered in-province access to abortion. In the summer that year, the PEI Advisory Council on the Status of Women sent a letter to Minister Curry and Minister Docherty telling the story of a woman who could not get a referral for an abortion and asking for updates on how the work on these issues was progressing. Also, last fall, we gathered and held a wonderful and vibrant event, the Sexuality, Gender, and Health Expo, which highlighted abortion access and the barriers that women have experienced. At this event, we also launched a zine of PEI women's abortion stories. In early 2014, Dr. Colleen McCrory released her research report in January, following 4 years of research. She sent it to policymakers and to Health PEI. Health PEI CEO Richard Wedge had changed his tune since his optimistic statements in 2011 and discounted some of the findings, saying there was still no plans to change the current policy, and she was not granted a meeting to discuss her research. This fall, however, the Board of Health PEI received a presentation from an anti-abortion activist from Ontario. Also in early 2014, a copy of our zine was sent to Minister Curry along with a letter requesting that he meet with the PEI Abortion Rights Network. There was no response. Repeated communication requesting a meeting continued for several months, but a meeting was not achieved until June. In May, we had a press conference about the business case, including the doctors willing to provide access to abortion in PEI. When the meeting finally happened in June, Minister Curry and Minister Docherty met with some members of the Abortion Rights Network and the National Abortion Federation. At this meeting, they both demonstrated that despite years of correspondence, research, and awareness building, these policymakers were completely ignorant of the basic mechanisms in place for referral out of province. They were unaware of the content of Dr. McCrory's research, and they completely absolved themselves of responsibility for the current restrictions. At this meeting, Minister Curry also refused to discuss the business case that would have saved the department money. This year, the Morgentaler Clinic closed. Justin Trudeau also announced that all federal Liberal MPs would have to vote pro-choice. And how did Premier Giz respond? "I believe the status quo is working," he said, despite all evidence to the contrary. In August, PEI hosted an international conference on abortion and reproductive justice thanks to the work of Dr. Colleen McCrory. And of course, we were also targets of those grisly anti-abortion posters from Ontario invited by the PEI Right to Life Association. This fall, Giz finally agreed to meet with Dr. McCrory and the PEI Advisory Council on the Status of Women. Only several days later, on October 20th, Laura Chapin, of course, made it clear that the Minister of Health had stopped the business case proposal that would have provided in-province access and saved the province money. The government's policy that he blames for his action does not exist. This leaves us with the conclusion that this non-existent but dangerous policy is nothing more than an unwritten rule in the old boys club. Minister Curry has lied. He has claimed ignorance, a dangerous ignorance, to an ongoing problem that puts women's health at risk. He has ignored vital information repeatedly offered to him. He has wasted precious health dollars to save political face. He has refused to respond to requests for meetings. He has refused to talk to the media. He has refused to show any valid policy restricting access to abortion. Minister Curry, if you can't do your job, you shouldn't have your job. Prove us wrong or step down.
Thanks, Josie. Wow, we've really come a long way. We've really been fighting a good fight, and it will continue. I'd now like to call Sarah Roach-Lewis from the Women's Network PEI to say a few words.
Hi there, thanks for coming. We were just talking a little while ago about how long we've been doing this, and Women's Network is celebrating 30 years as an organization this year. And as we've heard, we've been advocating for access to abortion for all those long years. And I'm cold and tired and sick of this, just sick of it. You know, all we're asking for is local access so that we can have autonomy over our own body. We have been receiving calls in our office and doing our best to communicate those to folks in the Department of Health, because you know what? It's really, really sad and really, really hard to listen to the stories of women who do what it says for them to do on the abortion on the government website. They go to a walk-in clinic and they're turned away. And they go to the ER and they're turned away. And we have people who are calling our office on behalf of women who need to have a medical abortion because they're in relationships that it's not safe for them. It's just not possible for them to get out of the province to access an abortion. This is just not right. Like all of you, I'm cold and tired and sick of it, and also really aware that we are in a position right now in our province where, you know, our current premier, he's leaving. It's a perfect opportunity for him to do something really amazing for more than 50% of the population of this province. And should he not be brave enough or courageous enough to do it, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to demand that the next premier of this province believes in access to abortion, believes that women have the right to have autonomy over their own body and are willing to act. The time really is now. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. So my name is Becca Vio, and I'm just really angry. And so I want to say some things. First, I want to thank everyone who's taken the time to be here. And thank you to all of our brothers and sisters who couldn't make it today, but all of those who are with us in solidarity across the province, across the country, and across the world, because this is a global issue. I also want to thank the dedicated activists and advocates who've been working tirelessly to ensure that women are valued in this province, fighting against what is so very clear right now, a very outdated and political agenda. Today we are here to honor the resurgence of the reproductive rights movement on PEI that happened 3 years ago today. We're also here to hold our government accountable for their secrecy, their lies, and for their irresponsible management of our tax dollars. We are here to continue our fight to be valued, our fight for our basic human right, our right to govern our own body. Health PEI told members of the reproductive movement a few years ago that if we could find a doctor and write a business plan that proved local access would save money and enhance the safety and prosperity of women in PEI, it could be possible. That the only thing standing in the way of local access to abortion was a viable plan and money. Well, we presented that plan, but it was shut down by our own Minister of Health and Wellness. How dare he? We don't even know if Minister Curry even read the plan before he brushed it off due to a supposedly unwritten policy that declares status quo as the best plan. Our government persists to declare that the status quo is better than saving money and better than ensuring a safe environment for island women. Yeah, shame indeed. The business plan presented to Health PEI includes a doctor. It is a plan for a twice-monthly abortion clinic in province, and it shows the government could save up to $37,000 yearly in expenses. Islanders who seek the procedure could save up to $46,000 a year. This plan in total could save the PEI economy up to $83,000 per year. So what do I want to know? I want to know, where is this policy? Where is the policy that is standing in the way of these savings? Where is the proof that the status quo is the most financially responsible approach? Where is the proof that the status quo is the safest approach for island women? Where is the proof that this policy is a responsible plan? That it promotes the health and well-being of over half. Yes, we are over half of the island's population. We elected this government to work for our prosperity. We elected this government to ensure islanders thrive. We elected this government to manage our tax dollars responsibly. But right now, as I stand here knowing this government has completely ignored the research and completely ignored the business plan that came from the people, a plan that could save islanders up to $83,000 per year. I wonder, who is this government working for? We all know that those savings are needed, and needed now. Islanders are hungry. The number of working islanders turning to food banks is more than double the national average. There are children going to school hungry. This is unacceptable. But this government still says, nah, we don't need any extra money. There is a shortage of shelter beds for those who struggle for warm, safe places to stay. Women in particular have no homeless shelter outside of Anderson House, which is focused specifically on women escaping violence. This is unacceptable. But still, the government persists in saying, no, we don't need any extra money. I love our government, so smart. I could keep going on, keep describing the lack of services in too many of our social institutions and communities, like mental health, addiction services, rape and sexual violence prevention, family violence prevention, food security, disabilities, senior care, reproductive and sexual health services, and education. But honestly, the list is far too long, and it is obvious that this government would rather deny half the population their right to govern and care for their own bodies than put their money where their mouth is and actually do something that values women. We are over half of the population, and without the ability to govern our own bodies, without the ability to truly access timely, safe, and well-educated choices about our body, we are not free. Island women are currently not free. Without access to timely and safe abortion services on PEI, by letting politics control women's bodies, this government is telling the rest of the country that PEI does not value women. Our government, our island government, is telling the rest of the world that PEI does not value women. So I'd like to say to this government, to this Liberal government, show us your proof. Show us the proof of your responsible management plan for access to abortion services. Show us you have a better plan than what we presented you. And I say to Minister Doug Curry, as Minister of Health and Wellness, it is your responsibility to manage your portfolio in a fiscally responsible and accountable way. Show us your department's policy on abortion services. Where is this policy? And prove that it is more economically prosperous than the business plan that was presented to Health PEI. Minister Curry, you say that this government's policy is not your policy? Well, prove it. Are you a defender of women's rights, or are you part of the problem? If you don't support this government's policy on abortion services, stand up and do something about it. If you, Minister Curry, are unable to responsibly manage your portfolio, if you are unable to prove that the status quo approach to abortion services on this island is the most fiscally responsible, the most compassionate, respectful, and fair approach for island women, if you cannot prove that the status quo is the best plan based on sound evidence, then you are not doing your job, and you should resign. Resign from your position as the Minister of Health and Wellness. And now, I'd like to call anybody who has a member of the Legislative Assembly with them today to come and stand in front of me. I'd like to welcome, the Legislative Assembly of PEI to come and stand here in front because I have something to say to you. So, to the rest of the Legislative Assembly, if this policy is not your policy, if you truly are defenders of women's rights, of human rights, I dare you to stand up and do something about it, because status quo no more. I say, status quo no more. And status quo no more.